Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootlickers, shills, deathly serfs, peasants, vassals, minions, meat sacks. I'm usually welcome. And so we have Trump declaring himself the peacemaker and continually brags about stopping 8 wars and has fostered a ceasefire in Gaza that clearly only applies to Hamas and not Israel. So it's a ceasefire name only, so it's not really worth bragging about. And then, of course, his pride is on the line as far as settling the Russia-Ukraine conflict. But I just find it interesting that on the one hand he's doing that, but in other ways he's utterly materialistic, and that brings me to the subject of this video. So there's an article that came out that said that Saudi Arabia has been lobbying the Trump administration to do some sort of intervention in Sudan, and Sudan is an absolute clusterfuck. We have a small national government that rules a very small section of part of Sudan, and then the so-called RSF, Rapid Support Forces, that are supported by the UAE, control much of the rest of the country and have been having a lot of successes lately. And there's a lot of genocide going on in Sudan, and it's a total bloodbath, including the slaughtering of Christians, and in very horrible ways. And in fact, supposedly 27,000 people were killed just in El Fashar when they went in there. And this war has been going on since April 2023. And there's the fact that on the sidelines, the Secretary of State Rubio has been pressuring the UAE. And there's definitely some political interest going on between Saudi Arabia and the UAE, and that has a lot to do with what's going on in Sudan, because the UAE is supporting the Rapid Support Forces, and then we have Turkey that's involved in supporting the national government there. And so once again, it's another proxy war, and people that have an interest in sustaining the war regardless of what is going on there, no matter how horrible. And so the country is split, and just horrifying events are going on there. There have been footage of horrible burn pits used to exterminate people. 400 people were killed just at a hospital they raided, and as I mentioned, 27,000 people were killed in El Fashar. So the whole idea of going into Sudan in any capacity is going to be very problematic, just like Trump's talks about going to Nigeria because of the extermination of Christians there. And so in the big picture, I just find it interesting that on the one hand, Trump declares himself a peacemaker, but then on the other hand is very militaristic. So now we can add rattling the sword with Sudan to this list that, of course, includes Venezuela now, and the provocative actions by the United States and this massive fleet off the coast of Venezuela, and talks about covert actions within the country and destabilization and regime change. And that's after talking about not supporting regime change either during the campaign. But the list of countries that Trump is involved in a military manner continues to expand. And we can add Sudan to that list. We got Nigeria, we got Venezuela. He's made threats to Colombia. He's made threats about targeted military strikes inside Mexico. And of course, is heavily involved in Syria, and there's no talk about withdrawal there. There continues to be airstrikes in Yemen. We just had our 100th airstrike in Somalia just in the last year. And then, as I mentioned, Nigeria. And then there's also threats against Iraq and Iran-backed militias that operate in Iraq. So there's a lot of areas of the world that Trump is talking about getting involved in militarily, or is already involved in militarily. So interesting combination of the peacemaker and the war maker. And of course, with Theodore Roosevelt, it was walking softly and carrying a big stick. And of course, with Trump, it's talking loudly and carrying an even bigger stick. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too?